Next, I'd like to turn to another freshman colleague of mine, the good gentleman from the state of Georgia, Mr. Carter.
Thank you. I thank the gentleman. Mr. Speaker, the greatest threat to our national security is our national debt. It's the #1 issue facing our country right now and one of the primary reasons I sought to serve in this body. I've often said that the only way that we're ever going to balance our budget, the only way that we're ever going to retire our national debt is by 3 things. First of all, we've got to cut spending. Secondly, we've got to have entitlement reform. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, we've got to grow our way out of this. The Ex-Im Bank helps us to do that. You know, as a small businessman, having owned 3 independent retail pharmacies for the last 27 years, I understand the value in business of cutting costs and increasing revenues. It's important. You have to either cut costs, and you have to do both. You have to cut costs and you have to increase revenues and you have to grow your business. The Ex-Im Bank helps us to increase revenues. It helps us to retire our national debt. First of all, the Ex-Im Bank has returned money to the Treasury in the form of revenues it generates from loan interest and fees. Last year alone, the bank generated a surplus of $675 million. Secondly, and most importantly, the Ex-Im Bank encourages economic growth by supporting the purchase of American-made goods around the world. These purchases sustain thousands of American companies who rely on exports and put food on the table of hardworking men and women employed by them. In my district alone, there are 19 companies that in recent years have utilized the Ex-Im Bank to export goods overseas. These companies range from Gulfstream, a leading manufacturer of aircraft, to Strength of Nature, a company founded by immigrants who fled the Castro regime and started a company that now exports many of their goods to the Caribbean and to Africa. The Ex-Im Bank helps businesses big and small across America to compete with their competitors abroad by leveling the playing field. With over 60 government export credit agencies currently active around the world, including every modern industrialized economy, allowing the bank to expire is tantamount to unilaterally disarming ourselves in the competition for big contracts around the globe. If a company cannot get financing to buy a Gulfstream manufactured in Savannah, Georgia, they'll go to Canada, which actively promotes Bombardier, or Brazil, which does the same for its Embraer jets. If they can't get a Caterpillar excavator made in Athens, Georgia, they'll go to Japan to buy a Komatsu. If they can't get access to an AGCO tractor headquartered in Duluth, Georgia, they'll go to India to buy a Mahindra. Mr. Speaker, again, as a small business owner myself, I know that American companies can compete when the playing field is level. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need an Ex-Im Bank, but we don't live in a perfect world. Instead of leveling the playing field for American businesses, those who would shutter the bank are stacking the deck against them. Mr. Speaker, unilaterally closing the bank would expose our economy to a devastating blow at a time we can least afford it. It would also further erode our global competitiveness and America's influence around the globe. While we stand here debating the future of the Ex-Im Bank, our competitors are leveraging their own versions of their export-import banks to increase their market shares abroad. Every minute we wait, foreign countries and companies are expanding. If we don't fill the market need, countries like Russia and China will, and with it, the influence of their regimes is on the rise. They relish in every day that we wait. Like any federal agency, the Ex-Im Bank can and should be reformed to make it more accountable, more efficient, more transparent. I support reforms that would bring interest rates more in line with those found in an open private market. I support reforms to ensure the bank is a true lender of last resort for all companies by implementing measures to ensure the bank's customers prove that they have exhausted all their options for financing by private lenders before seeking assistance from the bank. One way to do that would be to require 3 letters of denial as part of an application. The bank should also produce a report explaining why certain businesses receive assistance by the bank in order to provide taxpayers with more information on exactly what the bank is doing and why. Full transparency of the bank's actions is the only way to hold it accountable while demonstrating the valuable role the bank plays in maintaining our competitiveness in global markets. I stand here today ready to work with my colleagues to implement these and other necessary reforms to the EXIM Bank, but allowing it to expire is a disservice to the constituents that we serve. The EXIM Bank not only supports America's manufacturers and the working American families they employ, it helps to promote America's national interest abroad. And more importantly, and most importantly, it helps address our national debt, both through economic expansion and by returning its surplus to the Treasury each year. I want to thank my colleagues, Dan Newhouse, Stephen Fincher, and Chris Collins for helping to host this forum, and all those working with us to restore the EXIM Bank to its important function. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.